For those who don't know me, my name is Clarity, and I'm a teacher of Divine Feminine Spirituality and Tantra. And I very much also identify with being a mystic. And I feel like that really resonates with a lot of us, where we're having direct experience of spirit and we're not looking to some kind of authority to tell us how to live our spirituality. And from these direct experiences, we're receiving a lot of messages, a lot of codes. And I trust that this is the reason why you're here today. It's because you're feeling this calling. You're resonating with these symbols of the rose, of Mary Magdalene, the color red. All of that is awakening this remembrance within you. And so I'm so honored to be on this path with all of you, remembering the divine feminine path to spirituality, to healing, to ascension, as we will see with Mary Magdalene. I'm so honored to see so many sisters, some that I know and some that I'm meeting today. So welcome, everybody. And I want to say thank you also to Jenna for organizing this Mary Magdalene Feast Day coming up on July 22nd. It's going to be so amazing, and she'll be sharing a little bit more about that after the transmission. Oh, thank you, Jenna, so much. I love these moments. So I'm going to be sharing some pictures as part of my presentation, but just let me pull out my notes here. So I had the opportunity to go to south of France. South of France is, as we know, where the three Marys, or in some different myths, it's actually Mary Magdalene, Mother Mary, and Lazarus, who was supposedly Mary Magdalene's brother. And so they arrive in the south of France after the crucifixion of Christ, of Jesus, and his subsequent ascension. And here in the south of France developed the early Christianity, which is called the primitive Christianity, all the practice of Christianity that was before 300 AD. And so we have these original symbols that are encoded there on this land in the south of France that were still not touched by the later patriarchal imposition upon the Christian faith and the religion that developed afterwards. So we have a more pure form of Christian, not teachings, but more like in the symbols. It is very true to Jesus' teachings and to the energy that was that emanated from his incredible consciousness that shook the whole world very much. And so this is all there in the south of France, and I got to discover it for the first time this year in May. So I'm going to share just a few passages of this pilgrimage because there's so much to share. But the first thing that I would love to share with you, sisters, is my experience at the Basilique, la Basilique de Saint-Marie Madeleine, which is the church or the basilica where Mary Magdalene is supposed to be buried. So there's the tomb there. And it is a church that is dedicated to her. So it has very much this hugely feminine energy to her. So I'm going to share some picture of that church. So this is it from the outside. I think everyone should be able to see that. This is above the entrance. Actually, Mary Magdalene is seen with the skull. This is one of her symbols. There's also the jar, the alabaster jar, that is also one of her symbols. And this is inside the church. This is not a picture that I took. The other ones were, this is the organ. And you have here on the right, you have what is called a pulpit, which is where I guess it's the priest will go up to give sermons. And this piece really struck me as absolutely incredible. I have more pictures of it here. This is a picture that I took. There's a spiraling staircase that goes up to that pulpit, which is the space where that priest would give the sermon. And above it, there's a statue, wooden statue of Mary Magdalene ascending with 4 angels carrying her to ascension. And there's actually the 7 steps, sorry, the 7 passages that are carved in that spiraling staircase that leads to that pulpit. And these are the passages where Mary Magdalene is mentioned in the gospel. And for me, what this awoke is this Kundalini rising. I'm just going to admit someone else. Kundalini rising up the spine, spiraling up the spine throughout the 7 chakras, all the way to the crown. Right, so we have here this very universal esoteric teachings of there's 7 steps. Mary Magdalene was known to have been healed from 7 demons. So we're all going through this ascension right now. We're all cleansing through all of the chakras with whatever they need to be cleansed of, right? Maybe the 7 sins. So this is the work that we're doing now. We're not looking, feminine spirituality is not assuming that there's anything wrong with being wounded. It's part of the path. I mean, there's so much to share here, but I'm just going to leave you with these pictures. And yeah, this is another picture of it. And you can see it's just absolutely stunning work. Yeah, I'll talk a little bit more about that feminine path to ascension. But this is very much what Mary Magdalene represents. And this church, I'm just going to bring a picture of the church again. This church was very warm. It doesn't look like it on that picture, but it was like a friendly church. It was not these kind of austere moments and awkward moments that we have walking in churches where there's like silence and we don't know what to do with ourselves, and we're like doing all these mechanical things. Like people were chatting, people were hanging out. It was like a social place. And I just felt like home. It had this feeling of like warmth and home, like I'm like in my aunt's living room. And this is for me feminine spirituality. We're not transcending the mundane. We're not transcending the family, the home, the household. We're bringing spirituality into these spaces, and these spaces are our churches. And this is very much the feeling that I had from this church of Mary Magdalene. Okay, the next piece is really, really strong. It's the tomb of Mary Magdalene. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know that what I was going to see there. And so when I saw her tomb, I was actually frozen. Like I couldn't even put words to it, to what my experience was in this moment. And this is what I saw. Oh, okay, so this is another detail from the pulpit. The pineal gland is carved in the bottom of it, which is very interesting. Okay, this is what I saw. I'm sorry, this is not a very good picture of it, because this is from internet, because this was actually behind a gate. So I took a picture of it, but there's the gate in front. So I wanted you ladies to see it more clearly. But this is supposed to be Mary Magdalene's skull. And this is how she was preserved. Somehow some artists decided to do this metal work of these 4 angels carrying her. And this is a symbol for her ascension, but also the skull being a symbol for her mortality. I have another picture here. This is her skull, it's exactly her teachings. It's exactly that. The divine feminine is our mortality, our humanness, and our divinity combined. And in that symbol of her tomb here, I feel like that's exactly it. It's this eternal gold, which represents which represents, ascension or just the purification of our soul, and alchemy with our messy humanness, both combined and immortalized in that way. Okay, next piece is the cave of Mary Magdalene, where she's said to have spent the last 30 years of her life meditating. This is in a sacred mountain. Let me see if I have, I don't have a picture of that sacred mountain. This mountain is very, very feminine. It's called Saint-Maximin-la-Baume. And it was actually revered as a feminine mountain. Actually, La Baume means like mother. So it's like this mother energy where people would used to go even before Mary Magdalene arrived in the south of France and asked to receive, women would go and do these fertility rites for them to become fertile, or to just honor fertility, which was very much the religion of the past, is to honor fertility, to honor life, to honor the fertility of the earth and the fertility of women, because this is life. And so there was a church that was created, a chapel that was created inside this cave. So here you have it, with this beautiful stained glass representation of different, different passages where Mary Magdalene is mentioned in the gospel. Again, there's this number 7 here represented. And what happened to me in this church is that I sat down and immediately I put my hands on my womb to pray, which I had never done before. Like, it's like I was praying inside my body. And this is what was called for me to do. So again, it was reclaiming our body as, my body as sacred, my womb as sacred. And right there, sisters, I got my moon time. I started bleeding, which I didn't even expect. It was just this, again, this remembrance that my body is sacred, fertility is sacred, my womb is sacred. And this inside my body, like all these embodied meditation that we're doing, is bringing that spirit back into matter, which is divine feminine spirituality. So we're not looking outside of ourselves to connect to God, we're looking within. So I wanted to invite you, ladies, to start doing that when you're praying. Pray inside your body. Somehow, this is the message that came through. So I imagine that it resonates with you, because there's a lot of ways that we're already doing that with all these embodied practices. So as you could see earlier, this is Jesus on the cross. I think there's Mary Magdalene here at the base of the cross, but I'll show you another picture of that representation. But then at the back of the church, there was this statue of Mary Magdalene, again with those angels carrying her to ascension. This is the cave where she's supposed to have ascended, right? And I mean, there's so much to say, but one thing that I want to mention, I don't have a picture of it here, but there was actually fountains. Oh, not fountains. There were pools of water in the back of this cave, dripping with like drops of water, crystalline water dripping from the ceiling of the cave into those pools. And that very much showed me how water carries these codes of awakening and ascension. And yet I have to admit, there was something a little bit dark in this cave too. There seemed to be some kind of darker magic that was trying to contain this power. And so the pool was contained, and it seemed like the water was telling me that it wanted to flow. Like, stagnant water is toxic. Now, we cannot drink it. It's not good for us. You wouldn't want to bathe in it. I thought to myself, like, I go in like any waters because I love just going in water in nature. I wouldn't even gone into that water. It just didn't feel healthy, right? So Why, like, are we trying to contain this force of nature? It just wanted to flow. It wanted to be life-giving. And there was this sister here by this pool of water meditating. I could tell she was just blessing the water with so many codes. And even though it was stagnant, there was like just so much honoring of that water. There was like lights there. So it was almost its own altar in the back of the cave. There was a few pools actually. So I got to connect with that water too. And I actually, yeah, anyway, that's another story, but I connected to that water, and I soaked a sacred talisman of mine in that water, and I'm carrying that frequency of that water with me, which feels really good. Okay, this is the last picture. It was really intense actually to walk up this mountain. This is a pilgrimage road that people have been doing for thousands of years. Kings and queens, like from all over the world, coming to the sacred site to climb this mountain. And then you arrive, and that's the first thing that you see, actually. This is Jesus here in the middle. And you have, I want to say Mother Mary, Mary Magdalene here. So Mother Mary on the left, Mary Magdalene on the right. I don't know who that is. The other, if it's a woman or a man, and then those two other men crucified. So you have 3 women in the bottom, 3 men being crucified. But what's the most striking to me is how the symbol of Jesus on the cross is probably the most widespread symbol, the most powerful symbol that's used right now in spirituality all over the world. And it's complemented here with those 2 women mourning and grieving and being in pain and suffering from Jesus being crucified. So the feminine element is brought into that symbol. And what the transmission, the download that I got sitting here watching it in absolute awe was that Mary Magdalene was pregnant during this moment when Jesus was on the cross. And so with that knowing, suddenly you're adding the rebirth piece of the symbol. There's not only death and transcendence, which is very masculine, path to ascension, there's the rebirth process. And so suddenly you have a cycle of life, of birth, life, and death that is completed by adding the feminine element here at the base of the cross. Fortunately, I don't have another picture that I wanted to show you. So I'll just stop here. But yeah, these are some of the teachings that have been coming through, and I feel like this is really happening on the collective level, that we're bringing spirit back into matter. And what that means is that we're honoring our humanity. We're honoring our emotions. We're realizing that when we cry, when we're in a relationship, when we make love, when we raise our children, when we birth children into this world, all this is sacred. This is the divine feminine path, and men are part of it. I was actually journeying on this pilgrimage with my very first boyfriend from like 20 years ago. And he was so humbled to be guided by me on this pilgrimage. And he was listening and he was holding space. And this is a very spiritual man, actually, who has been on his own path to spirituality. And he was humbled by this experience. And I feel like we are healing our relationship with men on this path as well. So it's not just for women, but it is for women to be teachers, to be guides, to be leaders, and to be confident on this path, because it is for us to reclaim. So this is what I wanted to share with you, ladies. Let's just take a few breaths to receive these words into our bodies and just feel that resonance. And just feel called to invite you to place both hands on your womb, whether you have a physical womb or not. Just bringing attention to that lower belly space and just feeling that divine feminine vessel within you, your center of power. That holy grail. So much gratitude for all of you for tuning in.